It's race week again, and this week we'll be racing in Austria. And in today's video, we're going to see what Ferrari is preparing for the next race. Let's look at the outcome of the Pirelli tests, the news about Ferrari from the inside, and also Hamilton's statements. Toto Wolff, before we start, please leave a supportive like, and now let's get started right away. Ferrari is clearly at a crossroads. After half a season of chasing between disappointments and unfulfilled promises, the only certainty is that the Scuderia Ferrari 25 is not enough. And perhaps it was never enough. After the Canadian Grand Prix, Nico Rosberg made a heavy provocation. If Ferrari really wants to return to winning, it must open a base in England, where the strongest teams are born, where technology and racing culture are everywhere. An idea that evokes the ghosts of the past, when the John Barnard experiment ended very badly. But today, in 2025, does that comparison still make sense? The truth is that the Rossa doesn't need to copy anyone. The infrastructure in Maranello is excellent, with an updated wind tunnel top simulator and cutting-edge computational fluid dynamics. Everything is there, yet the 2025 car was born bad, with an aerodynamic concept that forces extreme choices to work. It should be close to the ground, but in doing so, it risks breaking the rules, as happened to Hamilton in China. It's a technical compromise that stops everything. And while McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes win, Ferrari takes comfort in the marginal victory in Shanghai. Too little. The reaction times are slow, and the technical direction is uncertain. And the drivers Leclerc and Hamilton continue to be explicitly frustrated. Lewis, in particular, is already looking towards 2026. Meanwhile, a new fund, a new suspension, and a breakthrough that is slow to arrive are awaited. But there's a deeper issue. The technical structure exists, but something is missing. Speed in decision-making, clarity in leadership, and effectiveness in project management. The regulatory changes on the wings were supposed to favor Ferrari, but the Scuderia Ferrari 25 is still behind. Why? Because the others evolve faster, and this is where Vasseur comes into play. The team principal needs to stop procrastinating. Last year, after a similar start, Ferrari managed to recover in the second half of the season, but today that reaction signal is missing. They continue to squeeze a machine that only works under ideal conditions, without a clear vision on the upgrade plan. And the drivers are asking for more. The real danger for Ferrari is not losing today, but not building anything for tomorrow. Betting everything on small steps risks being useless if the basic concept is limited. Vasseur knows this, and so does Hamilton. For him, we must already look ahead to 2026, to the car that will mark the new regulatory cycle. But how long can you wait? And here comes the paradox of slowness, because the updates do not arrive on time at Ferrari. There are two reasons. The first is that the updates must work on the Scuderia Ferrari 25. You can't take steps back, but you have to move forward. And for this reason, they wait to bring them into the car because they need to verify that the updates work. So they have more tests done in computational fluid dynamics and wind tunnels to be 100% sure that these updates work. But by doing so, they wait to bring effective updates to the car. While we think of opponents, for example Mercedes with the suspension.
Rear, we think
about the updates from Red Bull that arrived in Imola. We think about the same McLaren that was the first to bring some small updates. Well, all the other top teams are starting to update. Ferrari, on the other hand, is continuously behind. And this is not good for this season, or even for the next one. In fact, the team led in Vasseur is paralyzed by a paradox. They know they can't make any more mistakes, but precisely because of this, every update arrives late. The intention is good, to correct without taking risks. Race weekends are often poorly executed, the team seems disconnected. XR, who is the new technical director, still can't reverse the trend. And now we wait for the first corrections. In Austria, there's talk of a new base that should improve the aerodynamic load of the Scuderia Ferrari 25. By managing to run at a lower height, it is possible to better exploit the Venturi channels and generate more load. But will it be enough to save the season? Indeed, the next stage will be crucial. If the new bottom works, Ferrari could finally unlock the tire window, improve traction, and consistently return to the podium. If the updates are not enough, it will be the definitive signal that 2025 is gone and all the effort will shift to the 2026 project. And with all the rumors about possible Ferrari updates, many of you have also asked me when the modified rear suspension of the Rossa will arrive. For that, we will have to wait a few more races. In the meantime, there is also talk about the internal issue. Ferrari! How can the top figures change from now until the end of the year? Will there really be changes? And how much will they weigh then for the future of the red? In fact, Ferrari could be facing another upheaval. The rumors about Frederic Vasseur's future are becoming more and more insistent. Officially from Maranello, they deny everything, but in the paddock there are those who talk about a farewell already written. After just 2 seasons, Vasseur's adventure could come to an end. Despite bringing some stability, Ferrari has not yet managed to make the leap in quality. And with a technical revolution on the horizon in 2026, the pressures become unbearable. According to some sources, Ferrari is considering Antonello Coletta, currently in charge of the endurance program, as a successor. A respected man with 3 consecutive victories at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But are we sure that changing the team principal now is the right move? It risks being a déjà vu. Changing technical leadership on the eve of a regulatory change is dangerous. It would take time to build a new team, and the risk is losing ground at the crucial moment. But there are those who have a different idea. In fact, from the German podcast Backstage Box and Gas, Ralf Schumacher has launched a surprise proposal. Andreas Seidel led Porsche to success in endurance and relaunched McLaren in Formula 1, and today is the chief executive officer of the Sauber Group future team Audi. According to Schumacher, he would be the perfect man for Ferrari, but he warns he can't do everything on his own. He needs a structure that works for him. A heavy statement, because the problem with Ferrari may not be the name at the top, it's the entire decision-making chain. But is Vasseur really to blame? Schumacher defends him. Vasseur is not slowing the team down. The problem is that too many things are done poorly even when they are clear. And these are harsh words that go straight to the heart of the problem. Ferrari, the execution. While other teams develop with surgical precision, in Maranello they get the timing, strategies, and priorities wrong. There's no need to change the team principle again. What needs to change is the method. For years, according to many observers, Ferrari has put business ahead of the track. Supercars, exclusives, luxury merchandise, collections worth 19,000 euros. But the spirit of the Drake was different. They used to race to win, today they race to sell. And without that fierce ambition, no man, neither Vasseur nor Seidel, can change things alone. The real question is, does Vasseur deserve trust for next year as well? Or who could take the helm of the Rossa? In my opinion, the current problem in Ferrari is not so much Vasseur, but more the decision-making chain. And also the fact that this S25 was born bad and no one is really in charge of this project because the OXR is not taking its responsibilities on this project seriously, and it shows. He just arrived at Ferrari, it's normal. This also affects the performance of the Rossa because there is no one who takes responsibility for this project from a technical point of view. The first update package is on its way. In fact, the updates have arrived late because there is fear of making mistakes. After too many years without victories in Maranello, no one wants to take risks anymore. But time does not wait. While Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, and even Aston Martin are constantly updating, Ferrari has remained still in search of perfection, a perfection that does not exist. The new fund will arrive in Austria, and there is also talk of secondary but targeted modifications. The focus is clear to increase the aerodynamic load and improve tire management. Because the real Achilles' heel of the Scuderia Ferrari 25 is right there in the chronic difficulty of properly activating the compounds. And without grip, the car is always slow. In short, the Scuderia Ferrari 25 is too sensitive. It only works well under ideal conditions. As we have seen, for example, in the race in China, just a different asphalt, a temperature out of range, the performance drops. The first problem is the aerodynamic balance. There is a lack of load in crucial points, especially in the curve. The second problem is traction. Without a base that stabilizes the platform, the car becomes unmanageable. And that's why Vasseur has slowed down every update to be calibrated to the millimeter, otherwise there's a risk of getting worse, not better. The engineer's goal is to expand the operating window of the car, and that's what we expect in Spielberg. That is, to make the platform work in more conditions with different ground clearances and a less extreme setup. But be careful, nothing is guaranteed. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile documents still do not report official updates, a sign that work is still being done behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Hamilton continues to ask for updates, and Vasseur has decided not to give up. Yes, the World Championship is gone, but it's necessary to react, to show that we can grow, and to build a solid foundation for 2026. In short, every modification will be a decisive test. Either the updates work, or we'll have to admit that this season is also compromised. But this time there are no more excuses. The team has had time, data, and resources. Now it must prove to be up to the task. And Ferrari faced the tests at Fiorano last week, but what was the outcome of the Rossa and the feedback from the drivers? Charles Leclerc has been driving at Fiorano on behalf of Pirelli. But be careful, it's not the usual test. It's a key session to develop the wet tires we'll see in 2026. Yet behind these laps, there's an uncomfortable truth. No one really knows if these tests are useful for anything. The Scuderia Ferrari 25 has been adapted to accommodate narrower tires with an aerodynamic package modified to approach 2026. But the current single-seaters are far from those we will see in less than 9 months. And here lies the problem. The track has been artificially flooded with hot asphalt, and a car that is not the final one. Pirelli has tried to validate the behavior of the new tires under variable conditions. But, as Mario Isola admitted, the balance is only moderately positive. The summer temperatures skew the data, and the aerodynamic load is not correct. And the modified single-seaters can't replicate the dynamics of future Formula 1. In short, work is being done, but almost blindly. The paradox is evident. Tires are being developed for cars that do not yet exist, and the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile does not provide a standard prototype that would help everyone. This lack of coordination complicates everything and turns every test into a gamble. In fact, Pirelli is working in the dark with partial tools, and every little mistake can cost months of
development. Yet,
the work of the Milanese company must be respected. Every year, it still manages to provide reliable tires in a technical context that is constantly changing and imposes increasingly strict limits. The goal of these tests is to expand the operating window of the wet tires and improve performance consistency on a wet track. Today, the full wet tires are practically ignored. As soon as the track dries up a bit, we immediately switch to intermediate tires. And this is a problem that has been dragging on for years. Pirelli wants to change this scenario, but without being able to test the tires. On Auto 2026, every step forward is partial. The risk is that once again the final product will be judged in the race under the rain without a real validation. The next test will be on slick tires, that is dry at Silverstone, a historic, fast and technical track. There, yes, they will seek answers in dry conditions, but even in that case the data will only be indicative. Because the only real test will come in the 2026 preseason test with the new single-seater finally on track. The real issue is systemic. A more coordinated Formula 1 is needed between Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile teams and suppliers. Shared tools are needed, more realistic tests, and regulatory prototypes. Continuing in this way with modified cars and simulated tests is a break on technical development. But we also need to talk about power unit, because there is a big doubt about 2026. In fact, according to current simulations, the future aerodynamics does not work, and let's see why. The electric motor next year will triple its power, reaching 350 kilowatts or 475 horsepower. In parallel, the endothermic part will drop to 400 kilowatts or about 543 horsepower. The result is a completely new power balance. And to avoid a dramatic about-face, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile has chosen to solve the problem by acting elsewhere. In fact, by reducing the drag of the cars with the new aerodynamic rules, they are trying to mitigate the loss of aerodynamic load. But the real question remains, will the electric component hold up for the entire lap? According to Disma, who is a partner of Ferrari, the system can work, but the uncertainty remains. And meanwhile, some teams, especially those who feel they are behind, would have preferred to rebalance the power distribution. Mercedes and Audi, on the other hand, have blocked everything. Those who start ahead certainly do not want to give up the advantage. The gray area today is that of the HERS, and it is precisely there that the technical war of 2026 will be concentrated. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile has removed the limits on the number of hours at the bench for development.
electric first.
They were set at 510 annual hours, then at 410, now completely liberalized. This means that each manufacturer can squeeze their own electric system whenever they want. A huge advantage for those who chase, but also an opportunity for those who want to consolidate an existing advantage. And here, a delicate scenario opens up. In the first hybrid era, that from 2014 Mercedes dominated for years thanks to a technical advantage on the power unit. Today the risk is the same. Whoever guesses the right formula at the first attempt could hold the advantage for half a decade. Unless the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile introduces a system similar to that of wind tunnels with a sliding scale for development. For now, however, none of this has been approved and the margins for a huge technical imbalance are real. The future of Formula 1 is being played out on two fronts. On one side are the aerodynamic rules, on the other the evolution of the power units. The next few months will be decisive. Whoever makes a mistake today risks chasing for years, and whoever starts strong can write a new dominant technical cycle. But in your opinion, who will be the real winner of the 2026 revolution? Mercedes has already laid the groundwork for a new dominance. Or will someone else surprise? There's a lot of talk about 2026 and the rule changes for next year. But at the same time, the top teams are not giving up this year. and Red Bull goes all in to fight for the World Championship with Max in the driver's standings, Red Bull has decided to go all in on 2025, and it does so for two very clear reasons. The first is to try to defend the driver's title until the last turn, and the second is to prove that Max Verstappen can win even without the genius of Adrian Newey. For Christian Horner, this is not a transition year, it's an open battle. In fact, even if the Red Bull 21 is no longer the car to beat, Red Bull still has an extra weapon, which is Max Verstappen. In Montreal, the Dutchman maximized the result, taking advantage of the McLaren confusion and the strength of Mercedes. He didn't win, but he gained crucial points. And now comes Spielberg, a track historically favorable to Red Bull and Verstappen, who has won here 5 times. And if there's a circuit where everything can be reopened, it's this one. Horner's dream is to match Schumacher's record of 5 consecutive titles. A title that seemed impossible just a few years ago, and today comes from a brave choice. Continue to develop the car. 2025, even as others turn their gaze to the future. And behind the choice to bet heavily on 2025, there is also a hidden truth. Red Bull is no longer so sure of its competitiveness in 2026, and for this reason, it's better to gamble everything in the last year of certainties, even if the car is not the strongest on the grid. And if Verstappen wins this year, it would mean a lot, because it would be a victory without Adrian Newey. And not just for Red Bull, this victory would also serve to convince Verstappen to stay. It would mean saying we are still a winning team, even with a new technical structure.
And be careful.
That even though McLaren is the favored car, to win the Constructors' World Championship and to compete in the Drivers' World Championship, especially with Piastri but also with Norris, in my opinion, Verstappen remains in contention for the driver's title and should not be ruled out. Until the end, more than half of the championship is still left, and Red Bull is a team that is now used to winning even more than McLaren. It doesn't have the problem of managing an internal rivalry, and Max is the team's star player. They will do everything they can to try to make him win the title this year. And watch out for Toto Wolff, who wants to take Max Verstappen. Toto Wolff has never stopped thinking about Max Verstappen. And even now that the Dutchman is tied to Red Bull until 2028, the Mercedes team principal is quietly preparing the ground for a historic coup. In fact, Toto Wolff's secret goal is to bring Max to Brackley. There have been 3 controversial incidents with Russell in a month, culminating in contact in Barcelona, but Toto Wolff did not react. Because the reason is clear, he does not want to burn bridges with Verstappen. In 2021, Wolff publicly attacked today with Hamilton, who has left Mercedes and Russell still in the balance. Every word is studied to the millimeter. Sure, continuity could be given to Russell, who is ready to fight for the title. He is a mature driver and is capable of being the lead driver in Mercedes. But without a renewal yet signed. If Red Bull doesn't prove to be strong next year, well, Verstappen might think about going to Mercedes if the latter becomes the reference team. Because we know that Max wants to win, regardless of the team he races with. Russell is currently not locked in, but they could also give him a short contract. And this would determine Toto Wolff's desire to have Max inside the team in the near future. At the same time, he knows that Antonelli is constantly growing and will be fighting for the World Championship in 2027-2028. So would having an Antonelli-Verstappen pair be the top in Formula 1? Even though Russell is easier to manage as a driver, so it's not an easy decision for Toto Wolff to make, in this case. Let me know in the comments how you see Ferrari's long-term vision. Rare, what do you think? Will he be able to fight for the podium this weekend in Austria, where the first updates will arrive? I'm curious to read and respond to all your comments. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any Formula 1 themed videos. I'll leave you with some related videos. That's all from Lasse. See you in the next video.